Chuck, I know, like many of us, really excited to see the announcement yesterday. I want to go back to this past year inside of Donald W. Now, the team hasn't necessarily been great the last few years. You've been calling games. But what was the perspective like for you calling a game inside basically a three-quarters empty Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium?
Well, I think once the game starts, you don't really think about it. But it's certainly, I mean, you notice it. I think it affects just the overall feel when you don't have a full house. I think it affects you when you walk up to the stadium. I think it affects you when you walk in. And I think everybody feels that way. And to me, that was the thing that was missing last year, not just here, but all over college football, is that, you miss all the things that come with a game. And I think we realized again last year that, the game's really important, obviously, and that's what the day's built around. But all the things that come with it are what makes it, a special day, so to speak. And I think it'll be fun for everybody, from coaches to players to, guys that are calling the games like us to people who are sitting in the stands watching it. I just think the whole atmosphere is going to change.
Chuck, you, Tommy, and I have the benefit of being able to look ahead, but for this Arkansas football team, they have to have their focus on Rice, even though the majority of conversation is going to be centered around Texas in week 2. BetOnline just came out. Arkansas is a 3.5-point underdog in the Texas game in week number 2. How does Sam Pittman and his staff, despite all the conversation being surrounded in week 2, keep his team focused on Rice in week number 1?
See, I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think it's something that we're going to talk about, but, here's the truth. Arkansas, Texas doesn't mean much to these players because it's not their old rivalry. They've not heard their moms and dads talk about it their whole lives. Kids from Arkansas have, but I don't know that the others have. And everybody's going to understand it's a big week, but I don't think going through preseason practice those players are going to be thinking about Texas. Now, I think we might, but I don't think they will be. And how in the world I know people set odds, and I know it's fun to set lines in the summer, but how in the world, in the middle of June, you can make Texas a 3.5-point favorite? I have no idea. Now, obviously they've got a formula.
Yeah.
And they've gotten people to talk about, their site, their line, but I'll be anxious to see both these teams play their first games, and I think we'll have a better idea there.
Yeah, you're just going to pick a number. I'm surprised it wasn't a lot more, considering it's Texas. If you're trying to get people interested, because they.
Well, they're probably also maybe trying to get some early bets. I don't know. I don't know if you can bet on a football game now, can you?
I don't.
You can bet on anything, Chuck.
Let's refer to the gambling degenerate in the room.
Well, you're probably right about that. You're right about that. I should have thought about that before I said it. But that's going to be a great, it's going to be a great build-up. Yeah. It's going to be, unless there's a bigger game later, because of how we've done, it's certainly the biggest game on the schedule for people right now.
Chuck Barrett with us here on the Morning Rush. Chuck, you've been around college athletics for 30 years, it seems like right now, whether it's baseball or the football team or recently the basketball team. The news of the week has been the Supreme Court's ruling, decisive 9-0 victory that's going to expand compensation on educational benefits for the players. Everybody feels like this is just going to open the gate for other lawsuits, and pay for play is certainly on the way. I want your perspective on how you think this will change the dynamics of college sports, because we've had a lot of text and interactions this morning from callers and listeners that they fear that the locker room and the dynamics there are going to change, and that college sports as we know it will change forever. Is it going to be that dramatic in your opinion?
I'm not sure how the change or exactly what the change is going to be as we move forward. But I think when you look at this and you look at the transfer portal and some things that are going on right now in college sports, I don't think it's unfair to say that it's not ever going to be the same again. I think that's accurate. I just don't know exactly how it's going to be, and I think that's something that we're going to have to wade through. And by we're, I mean everybody. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to offer their thoughts on what this is going to mean, and they already have. and none of us know because it is going to change the landscape. And the Supreme Court decision, and I don't keep up with the Supremes as much as some do, but I know that there's been an effort, evidently, not just on this case, but others, to have 9-0 votes. I don't put as much stock in the unanimous as some do, because there have been a lot of unanimous rulings on a lot of other things recently. But the NCAA knew this was coming. I don't think anybody was surprised by the ruling. Schools have tried their best to get out in front of this, but I don't know that they fully understand yet exactly how it's going to all play out. There's got to be a system in place, and I don't know what it's going to be, but there's got to be a system in place to where all the players, regardless of whether or not you're a star or not, have an opportunity to get something out of this. Because I'm going to tell you, if you've got a star player in a sport, the guys that practice with him every day, the guys that, ostensibly make him better or her better, there's going to be natural resentment creep in. It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
Because we're all human beings, and it's human nature. And so, when you have a ruling like this, generally speaking, the Supreme Court makes the ruling, and then everybody else got to work out the details.
Yeah. Well,
I think we're a long way from the end game on this. I think there are still many, many more questions than answers. And I think anyone who says they know how this is going to affect things at this point just kind of, I'm not sure they're going to be right. I'll just put it that way. But I do think it's fair to say that college sports as we know it has changed forever. Now, how that change is going to play out in terms of what we watch on the field of the court, I don't think we know yet. This is the great Pandora's box,
sure.
And I don't know, and that's a long answer for I don't know. And most people, if they're honest, will tell you they don't know either.
So you would say work out the details, and there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot more questions than any of us have answers, but we've seen in recent times with the response to the pandemic and COVID that it's been a conference-wide response. Do you think this issue will be one that Greg Sankey will lead a response with his ADs and chancellors, and the SEC will attack this issue in a unified manner? Will it be school by school, or do you think there will be more of a national platform, or is it's probably way too early to say?
Well, I think it's early to say, but I do think it's probably a pretty good bet that it's going to be a conference by conference. I don't think it's going to be, at least in the SEC, I don't think it's going to be school by school. I think all the schools will obviously, make their own moves, but I think it is going to be done to a degree in concert with a conference, and I suspect others will be too. We'll probably move toward some kind of national policy, for lack of a better way to put it. But here's the thing. I mean, it's just like in life. You've got haves and have-nots. Mm-hmm. And some people are going to be able to do this. Some people are going to be able to make it work. Arkansas, for example, is already, they've hired someone to try to administer this. And it's here. And schools are going to have to, and conferences, and ultimately the NCAA is going to have to wade through this. And I don't think it's going to, I think this is going to evolve, so to speak. And, but it is, it's the great unknown. I think we've known it was coming. Teams or schools have tried to prepare. But the thing you got to understand is, people like to, point their finger at the NCAA. I mean, the NCAA is made up of member institutions. Every NCAA committee out there practically is made up of presidents and athletics directors and people from schools. So, the NCAA is again, made up of member institutions, and they'll figure it out together. And, it's going to be a dicey situation because human nature is going to get involved in this. Greed's going to get involved in this. And it's just inevitable. So, we're here, and now we'll see how everybody handles.
As you've been around coaches and administrators and just people on campus, is there one overwhelming concern or issue that seems to be a common theme, and if this comes up in conversations? Or does it even come up much in conversations?
Well, during, of course, a game week or when you're preparing for a game, it does it. I suspect that it, is a real topic of conversation right now. My sense for coaches has always been that they want the players to benefit as much as they possibly can. And let's be honest, major college coaches are rich. They live really well. They live large. And players see that. They know that. And I'm not saying that, coaches feel guilty about it, because I don't think they should. But I also think they're very much aware of that dynamic. And I've never been around a coach who doesn't want as much for his student athletes as he can get. And so I'm sure there are coaching concerns. I'm sure there are team concerns. I'm sure there are all sorts of areas where coaches have concerns about how it's going to affect their team. But I think they are for the players. In fact, I know that. And I know that they want them to be able to benefit from this.
Chuck, we're about to jump into What's Your Beef Wednesday here. I got a little beef for your former co-host, Clay Henry. But before we let you go, and I know you live a lavish lifestyle, but is there anything that's been ticking you off this week? Is it that we're 73 days out from Arkansas football and it's not here next week? What has been irritating the voice of Razorback football and basketball as of late?
Balls and strikes at the College World Series. For me, it's this way every year. I don't know what happens to the strike zone when they get to Omaha. I don't know how some of these guys get there to call the games every year. That's always my beef this week in June is balls and strikes at the College World Series.
That works.
They
behaved all year. Now they can do it. They've arrived at the mountaintop. They can do what they want now, I guess.
I would guess his beef would be more.
Now let me tell you this: I did baseball for a long time. It's not just at the College World Series, and anybody who's involved in college baseball teams closely knows this. You get to the NCAA tournament, it is going to be a totally different strike zone than what you dealt with during the year. It's going to be different from night to night. You got supervisors in the stands. Tommy, you know this. You're an official. Guys want those gigs. They're good gigs.
Yeah.
And it's not just about your ability on the field. Now, that's got something to do with it, and I'm not saying they're not great umpires. But, they do what they have to do to keep those gigs. I'll just put it that way. And for me, and I'm not going to say it ruins the College World Series because it doesn't, but it bothers me every year. There's not been a single year where the balls and strikes in the NCAA tournament are the same. And I'm talking about the very first regional game all the way to the last out in Omaha. The strike zone's always different. And I've never understood that, and it's always driven me crazy.
What he's saying is fix it, Tommy. Let's get your
Robo ump. They're going to bring in the computers to call balls.
I'm not for that either. Yeah. I'm not for that either. Just for the record, I'm not a big instant replay guy. We've taken the argument out of the game. The only time a coach or a manager argues and gets thrown out anymore is when they're arguing balls and strikes.
Yeah.
You don't have you don't have arguments out on the bases anymore. It's like a hockey game without a fight. I mean, it's part of the entertainment package.
Yep.
And I know you want to get it right. And I understand all that. But I think we basically, at times, we're a little too smart for our own good.
I love it when people want to argue with you go to replay, they see it, and then they want to argue with the decision of replay. Isn't that kind of like arguing with math?
Well, you're not going to win that argument. I know that. And so, again, I do think there's a place for it. I am not for robo umpires. I know it's coming, but I've never really liked that aspect of it. Umpiring's hard. I mean, you got guys out there throwing 90 miles per hour. That ball's on you in a hurry. It's moving all over the place. I'm not saying it's an easy job, but these guys are supposed to be the best in the business. And for me, every year when we get to this point, I watch the games, and every game I'm thinking, man, that guy's a zoo behind the plate.
Yeah. Well,
And I've thought that a couple of times already.
Yeah, I was thinking about
I thought
this.
they protected Leiter. They protected Leiter the other night when he pitched. They gave that Mississippi State pitcher every call in the book. And I just wish they wouldn't do it. That's my beef on Wednesday. How about that?
That's a good one.
There you go. I was thinking about this. I was at the final game, that Sunday game when Cops pitched against NC State, and if it's that difficult for batters to pick up that slider and that cutter, it can't be easy for the umpire either to figure out if that's a ball. If it's fooling the batter that badly, it's got to be fooling the umpire at times too, whether it's a ball or a strike.
I think it does, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in that. It is a hard job. But these are supposed to be the best of the business. I mean, they're supposed to be the cream of the crop, and that's why they're there. And I just think it's really inconsistent. I don't know if they've told him to give the high strike. I don't know. But I think the strike zones for some of the games I've watched have just been really all over the place.
Good stuff. All right,
I
man.
guess I'm hacked. We're not there, too. I guess I'm hacked. We're not there, too.
That's what I'm hearing.
That makes it worse.
I hear it in your voice.
We're all bitter. All right, man, and keep them in the fairways. We'll chat again soon.
All right, fellas. Thanks.
All right.
Always good to catch up with the voice of Arkansas Razorback football and basketball, Mr. Chuck Barrett.